ladies to the session tonight, which is regarding surviving, moving from surviving to thriving, and how to take back control during but also after family court proceedings. As I said at the start, sadly, Sarah Taylor from Peepsa can't join us tonight, but what we really wanted this session to be about is a session on resilience, healing, and also taking back your power. So firstly, I'm going to talk you through a bit about my journey. I do recognise some of you wonderful ladies on tonight. Some of you I don't, with all due respect. So I'll just talk a little bit about me, just so you know that I can resonate on some level with the journey that you're either currently on or that you have been on. So in my late 30s, I experienced an emotionally, psychologically and financially abusive marriage that I can only describe as feeling, kind of in hindsight, that I'd literally lost my soul, completely lost my identity, sense of self, and kind of everything in essence. In January 2020, I became a single mum with just £60 in my bank account. Like many of us, life still had to go on, mortgage bills to pay, a business to run, and an absent father. In May 22, which was no coincidence, a month after our divorce was finalised, and my ex-partner proceeded with family court proceedings, wrongfully instigated, and he went for full custody of our child. As I know you ladies can resonate with this, the anxiety levels, the levels of stress, potential, panic attacks, which I experienced myself at that time, as well as juggling and managing just life, for some of us, work and the children, trying to protect them. It's just a hell that none of us kind of, would have expected, sadly. Throughout proceedings, I did self-represent, and I didn't at the final hearing, though, just because by that point I was running on empty, to be perfectly honest. In October 2023, my child was sadly wrongfully removed from my care and sent to live with our abuser. And basically, after that, I can only describe it as the dark night of the soul for me. I didn't know at that point how to move forward. It was my rock bottom, and I basically ended up paying thousands and thousands of pounds to reconnect with her via supervised contact centre visits. However, at that point in October 23, something really changed for me. As hard as it was, at that time, I felt like a light inside me ignited again, and something refused to disappear, and I refused to give up. And although I asked the heavens, why are we in this situation, I was not going to give up. And day by day, choice by choice, I did start to rebuild again. As I said at the start, I'm going to share with you, lovely ladies, some things that helped me get through those proceedings. And yes, sadly, they're not kind of miracle cures, unfortunately, and I wish I could give you ladies that, trust me, but they are things that just help me get through another day, sometimes just another hour and sometimes just another minute. So for me, what really helped was stripping things back and taking things literally one day at a time. So I try to stay in the present moment as much as I could. As much as I started initially sort of trying to predict, what could happen, and all this is going to happen next and that's going to happen next, the more I did that, the worse my anxiety became. So I tried to stay in the present moment, and I asked myself, what do I need to do in the next hour? And I focused on that quite simplistically. And that is more than enough. And for me, it really, as I said, helped me to prevent overwhelm, helped me to prevent really heightened stress levels. So what I would do if anyone is going through proceedings now, when you start to feel that overwhelm, that sense of stress, write down, if you can, in that moment or whenever you get time, what things are causing you stress and overwhelm. And that will, in essence, release them from your mind. But also write down what you feel you need to do now, i.e. within that next hour, and that'll shift the focus onto that situation now, rather than, as I said, trying to be sort of too, what I call future thinking. And now nature for me was a huge part of my journey. I've always loved the outdoors, but just where I could and where I felt capable, I spent time in my garden initially, because at the start of proceedings, and for quite a big proportion throughout, actually, I didn't want to go outside, and certainly not to go outside on my own. So I spent a lot of time in my garden, literally standing barefoot on my grass, listening to birds, breathing in the fresh air as deeply as I could. And when it was sunny in the UK, enjoying the sunshine. And then obviously when I felt capable, sort of taking a walk. And for me, nature really reminded me that actually nothing stays the same forever. Seasons change, storms pass, but so do the hardest seasons of our life. And for me, being, in nature really helped me to come back to that present moment when, again, my mind was racing and things were just really overwhelming. And then another thing that really helped was just resting. And it's something that I hadn't been used to probably as long as I can remember, to be honest. And at the start, I felt like resting was like giving up. I felt guilty for resting because I was like, I need to keep fighting, I need to keep going for our child. But I found as proceedings progressed, I found the more I rested and the more I sort of recuperated and regained my strength, the more I could actually fight harder, if that's the right word for it. So for anyone that's kind of watching this and you're feeling actually, quite similar in terms of actually you don't want to rest, you feel guilty perhaps for resting or feel guilty for doing anything that brings you a glimmer of happiness, a glimmer of joy, please don't feel guilty, because it's a really important part of regaining your strength and just being able to face those challenges with literally renewed strength and power. And I know you lovely ladies will know this already, but for me, a huge part of supporting my journey through family courts was my love for my child. As mothers, above anything else, our love for our child can be a reason to keep showing up. So as much as you can, keep reconnecting with that feeling when you're feeling at a low ebb. And when you have that strong why, i.e. the reason you're doing this, it can really help carry you through the darkest moments. And then for me, when things felt really chaotic, really overwhelming, I stripped my life back quite literally to the basics, literally the basics of life. So getting up, getting dressed, I got up at literally exactly the same time every single day, because I know on a personal note that helps my body. If I sort of, my pattern is everywhere, my body gets quite fatigued and kind of out of sync. So I chose to do that intentionally. But if you can, try and get up at the same time every day, because your body and your mind will feel more motivated having done so. Get dressed. And it's just a really simple act of just showing up for yourself every single day, knowing that you deserve that love, knowing you deserve that nurture for yourself. And if you can, wear something that makes you feel good about yourself. So don't wait for that moment to kind of wear that top you've always wanted to wear. Even if you're just around the house, wear something that makes you feel confident in yourself. Yeah, and as I agree, Louise, it's really hard because we feel no one else understands. But I think that's where things are starting to evolve ever so slightly, with the likes of, the work that wonderful Sarah Taylor of Peeps is doing, hopefully the work I'm doing in A New You. And people across social media, I found, are just really starting to speak out a lot more now and starting to understand, to empathise, to show kindness towards each other, because there is hundreds of thousands of people that have been in this situation. So please don't ever feel that you're alone. And another thing that really helped me is just drinking water. Again, it's very simplistic, but when your body's hydrated, it supports your brain function and your physical recovery. Whereas when you're dehydrated, it can worsen stress symptoms. So again, it's something really simple, but hopefully something that we can all sort of consciously choose for ourselves. And then, as before, when I talked about nature, moving my body became really important. And I completely get, for many of us during proceedings, or even for a long time after, you don't feel like doing anything. You're fatigued, you're absolutely exhausted mentally and physically. So for me, that just started off as every single morning doing some really simple stretches, and then the same every single evening. And knowing what I know now about the nervous system and how the body works, basically by doing that, it shifts the nervous system out of fight or flight or out of that freeze mode, and just can really help maintain a sense of calm as well. So I've just lost my slides now. It's not very helpful, is it? There we go again. And also, as Louise rightly mentioned, that human connection is so, so important. And I do respect fully that, not everyone can talk about their proceedings. And, sadly, that is the case. And as we have to adhere to that, unfortunately. But wherever you can and wherever you feel able to connect with family and friends, you don't necessarily need a big circle. You just need a small one that kind of understands, or perhaps, is just able to give a listening ear. And also, as mentioned, communities like Peepsa, Louise mentioned Emma Davey, the New You, which is my group, we offer something that can be sort of a little glimmer of hope, shall we say, something that's quite precious for those that are going through this, and they maybe feel alone, they maybe feel people don't understand, or they can't find the words for what they're going through. Please just know those groups, those individuals, they are there for you. So if anyone watching this now, please don't ever feel alone. And for me, being around those people who believed in me reminded me that I wasn't the problem, the system was. And as I said, I wasn't alone, and neither of you. So please don't feel that you are the problem, because there are, as I said, sadly, but hundreds of thousands of people that are going through the same. Now, these are also practical tools that helped me personally when I was in the thick of proceedings. And again, it's just things that help me get through another day, a difficult day, perhaps a court hearing, and moments where I was just completely, mentally and physically exhausted. So music has always been a huge part of my life anyway, but listening to high energy music, or something that I found empowering before hearings or before difficult meetings with any organisations, and dancing, if I could, depending on where I was, just really helped empower me, help rebuild my confidence. And the science behind it is basically music and movement shifts your energy, your posture, your mindset, in literally minutes. And I love that, Dee. Absolutely. I did as well, actually. I think I had Unstoppable by Sia, This Girl Is on Fire by Alicia Keys, and I don't actually know the song title, but another title by Rihanna, which is very upbeat. So again, utilize music, utilize that movement through dance, walking, whatever that looks like for you, as much as you can. And along those lines, one thing that really, really helped me, which some of you may laugh at, but it's the Wonder Woman pose. So it's basically where you stand really tall, push your shoulders back, chest out, have your hands on your hips and feet slightly apart. And you just take a real deep breath in and exhale slowly. And just maintain that pace for around a minute, or again, as long as is practically possible. And it's just a really quick, simple way to increase your confidence. So I used to do that before hearings, because a lot of my hearings were online, but also before any contact I used to have with my ex-partner as well, when handovers became between us. And another thing that genuinely, and Bryony, I love that song, it's a brilliant choice. And another thing that helped me, which is actually probably one of the most significant things I would say in my journey, both throughout proceedings, but also afterwards, is using my breath to utilize calm and inner peace. So when we're in survival mode, which many of us no doubt sadly are, your nervous system becomes stuck in that fight or flight or that freeze mode. And you're constantly kind of scanning for danger, constantly feeling on edge or anxious. But our breath is literally one of the simplest, most accessible and powerful tools that's available to us. And when we use our breath, so breathing in deeply, it can be a really effective tool to calm the body's, what we call the alarm system. And a way of doing this is basically breathing in for 4 seconds and then breathing out for 6 seconds. And that longer exhale signals to the body's parasympathetic system, which is basically the body's rest and restore mode, that it's safe, that you're okay. So for anyone watching, if you can draw on this breathwork practice, no matter where or when, our breath is something that no one literally notices what we're doing. So whether it's before a hearing, during a hearing, maybe you have an email to send you don't want to send, it's triggering you. Maybe you have contact with someone that's triggering you. Just use your breath to manage that process and quietly say to yourself, either out loud or in your mind, I am safe. And keep repeating that as many times as you can and still until you start to feel calm again. And one thing is really, really important to me to remind you, lovely ladies, is no matter what is written down about you, or no matter what someone says, that doesn't define who you are, and it doesn't suddenly become the truth. So as it says there, don't absorb their words as your identity. Because as we all know, the narrative is a reflective, sadly, of the system, of their agenda, but not your reality. So the truth doesn't change about who you are just because someone's chosen to write a few words in a report, just because they've chosen to write something in an email, or just because they've lied and said something. That doesn't suddenly become your identity, and it doesn't suddenly define who you are. So please, please always remember that. Apologies, ladies. There is a few more slides on this topic, but basically for me, I know I've mentioned breath work was really, really important to me as well, but also gratitude. And I remember when someone first said about me practicing gratitude, I was like, oh God, don't be silly. That's a load of woohoo. I don't want to be doing that. I don't have time to think about anything else. But you know what? I got to a point where I was like, okay, I'll give this a go. What else have I got at this time? And I practice it literally daily, and I still do now, years down the line. And it really helped me to maintain and to cultivate what is known as a growth mindset. So where you're building kind of forward momentum, building positivity, even if things are very, very challenging, even if you feel like actually there's not much to be grateful for. So what I would recommend to anyone is end each day with some gratitude. So I used to literally think of 3 things each day that I was grateful for. And even when my child was taken from me, I would always find something to be grateful for. The fact I was still breathing, I still had a roof over my head, I had friends and family, I was surrounded by love and care, my child was still alive. And yes, it may feel like that's not enough at times, but please, if you can, try and get into this practice of doing this, because it maintains a really healthy mindset. It helps maintain positivity for the future. And it also allows us just to recognize that small things are still there. We haven't lost everything. And when we practice gratitude, it's almost like a journey of like, this is where I am, but this is where I'm moving to, this is how far I've come. And every small thing you can think of is worth noticing and worth holding on to. And in line with that, recognize the small wins, whether that's in literally proceedings themselves, or whether it's in perhaps a way you've changed in the way you kind of approach something, or maybe it's a way you've kind of sent an email a bit differently from how you would do normally, or even just managed to get out of bed one day. Like gratitude, recognizing those small wins will help shift your mindset from one of surviving to growth and resilience. So instead of measuring your journey where you are at this time, it will build confidence in the possibility of a brighter future. So much like gratitude, end each day by saying out loud or even writing down 3 things you've achieved. And it doesn't have to be anything momentous. It can literally be, I've got out of bed today, I've spent some time outside, I've got through another difficult day, I've had a shower, I've sent that email, set a boundary. Perhaps you've had a moment of joy or peace amongst the chaos. And the more you can start recognizing that, the more you'll start feeling lighter in yourself. And one thing I'm going actually whether to mention in this presentation, but I have done because it's actually helped me quite a lot kind of after proceedings, but I can imagine that it will help possibly some of you ladies during as well. And that is artificial intelligence, so using AI where appropriate. So my days are kind of beyond AI, shall we say. So my family court proceedings were 2021 to 2022 and 2023. So I don't know if I recognised if AI was even at all then, but I know it's obviously come to the fore a lot more now, which I do use it now throughout post-separation abuse. But I use ChatGPT and also Claude AI. And I can imagine if you're going through proceedings now, it may help you kind of just to understand maybe perhaps a little bit of the legal jargon, talking about, help you, understand about sort of the court process itself, maybe to draft, draft statements that you can say to AI, please, can you make this child focused or write it in the child's best interest, that kind of thing. And for those of you that are perhaps the other side of court proceedings like myself, as I said, I've used it a hell of a lot to respond to my ex-husband's abusive messages, to respond in a very child-focused, calm, and, what I call the grey rock method. So we're keeping it as very factual and concise as possible. And it's really helped me to reduce the stress and overwhelm associated with that. So for anyone that feels it's appropriate, please do use it. But I will say it doesn't obviously replace any sort of independent legal advice or any specialist, domestic abuse support. Okay, I think it's really, really important for me to say that as well. Now, another thing which has been with me very randomly throughout proceedings, actually almost fell into my path probably a few months before my ex-husband instigated family court, was spirituality. And now for some of you, this may look very different from my path, and I completely respect that. So I'm not here to kind of preach anything to you lovely ladies, but that's okay, Dee. Nice to see you, lovely. But I will say that spirituality for me has been found in kind of the form of like recognizing angel numbers, on the clock. I've got some angel cards, which I now do every evening. And I do actually have a children's pack of angel cards, which my daughter uses, which she's found really, really empowering and supportive as well. And things like white feathers that have shown up on our path, a song being playing on the radio that means something or is associated with someone. It's given me a lot of hope and a lot of certainty. And I've also undertaken some free psychic medium sessions. So I've been on good old Facebook and I've accessed people like Tiffany Skiro, or there's a lady called I'm Bewitched by Sarah. They will often do free psychic readings, and I've accessed them, and I've also paid for sessions as well. And those sessions have really given me a sense of certainty and hope to know that actually I've been put on this path for a reason. And where we are now and where we were back in 2023 wasn't the end of our journey, and the best is yet to come. Yeah, Laurie, they were 100% accurate, lovely. Bearing in mind the ladies knew nothing about me. In essence, to put it very sort of to summarize, I guess, every single lady, so I think I saw 4 different ladies altogether, basically said he's won the battle, but he hasn't won the war. So, he's taken your child from you, but he won't win overall. And that phrase has always stuck with me, that, there's a lot more to it than that. Don't get me wrong, they went into a lot of detail, but it really gave me that hope and certainty that actually I'm in the mire now, I'm at rock bottom, but things will progress. So the ladies that I saw are on the slides, Laurie, but Tiffany Skiro and I'm Bewitched by Sarah, which 2 ladies you'll find on Facebook. I think they're both across social media as well, so like Instagram and possibly TikTok as well. And I saw a couple of other ladies who are very much local to me in Devon. So if anyone is from Devon watching, then I'm more than happy to share their information as well. And with spirituality, as I said, it just gave me a sense that something greater was protecting my child and I. And I always wear, and again, you may or may not resonate with this, but an Archangel Michael necklace, because Archangel Michael is the protector. He is the, the angel, guardian angel that is the protector. So my daughter has a necklace of him, and so do I. And it just gives us that comfort to know, as I said, we're protected. And at that time where I was literally at rock bottom, just a reminder of that we were where we were meant to be at that time, but that our path was still unfolding. And as I said, I completely respect that this may not resonate with all of you. So, whatever that hope or faith looks like for you, it may be prayer, it may be meditation, it may be just spending time in nature to reconnect with yourself, or just a moment of, simply being. But find something that makes you feel connected to something greater than this chaos. It's really, really important, and it will hold you when nothing else will. And as I said, it just gave me the hope that when I wasn't feeling strong, when I sadly wanted to give up, there was something else there that was looking after my child and I, and that really carried me through. And one thing I've learned, I guess, throughout the whole family court journey is to sit with my emotions. And it's something, if I'm honest with you, ladies, I don't think I've ever done in my life, because I had an upbringing where it was very much about, we don't cry, we get on with it and we carry on. And, showing emotions was very much a weakness, or I learned it was very much a weakness. But one of the things, I love that, Liz, that's fantastic. You've got that pendant. And I think, yeah, I've not heard of St. Jude, actually. I will have to look that up. So thank you for sharing that. But with our emotions, it's important that we feel them. It's important that we let them be. And for me, I've learned that resilience actually isn't just about, kind of avoiding emotions. We're not strong because we've avoided crying. We're not strong because we've avoided kind of showing how we're really feeling. It's actually, we are strong because we can cry, but then we can return to ourselves again. And I have literally cried a river. I'm not gonna lie about that. I've cried a river. I've got a punch bag in my garage that I've punched when I've needed to get out all that anger. I've screamed when no one else has been in my house. I've shouted, like, why me, why us? So, when you can, when it's safe to do so, sit with your emotions and don't be afraid to sit with them, because when we process them, the body starts to feel better. So it releases any anxiety that may be stored, it releases any dense energy. But when we don't sit with them, it can be held within the body. So, we start to feel that anxious feeling, those aches, those pains, even illness. And, the famous book says the body keeps the score, and, it literally does. So when you can, just let yourself be. And with that kind of release of emotions, it will make you feel tired naturally. It will make you feel drained. But just know that you are releasing something that is really important to let go of, basically. And for me, the resilience and the strength has been built for me by actually shortening the time between releasing that emotion, say, for example, crying, and then actually coming back to myself. So during family courts, I would cry, and then for a few days, I would feel that same emotion. Whereas now I can cry, and half an hour later, I'm right, I'm ready to go again now. I've released it, and I'm ready to face the next challenge. And I think that is where the journey is with that. It's not about avoiding emotions altogether. It's actually about how we process them and learning that actually that is resilience and strength in itself. And with that, one thing I learned is when I was releasing that, I just used to say to myself, supposed to close my eyes and just place my hand on my heart and say to myself, I trust my emotions, I move with my energy, and I turn every feeling into power. Because that, in essence, is what it is. We don't really realize as women that we are so, so, so powerful. And just because we may cry, just because we may get angry, just because we may shout or scream, it doesn't make us any less of a person that we are. Obviously, if it's safe to release those emotions in a safe environment, then that is power in itself, because we are reconnecting with who we truly are. And then one thing I used to do as well, or be conscious of, is actually not attaching meaning to every feeling or behavior that's directed at me. You know, very much like I mentioned before, if a report states something, or an email, or a conversation's had, don't take that on board as being you, because it's not. It's just someone else's narrative. You know, yes, you can recognize it. Yeah, they've said that. Okay. And if it starts to build any anxiety or stress, just again, use your breath to process that. And as you do, say quietly to yourself, I feel, I flow, I free. And that is a way, again, of processing that emotion that you've had to deal with. It's been directed at you, possibly, but recognizing it and choosing to release it, okay? And the breathwork practice, the 4-second inhale and the 6-second exhale, can really support that one. Yeah, 100%, Louise. Women have been suppressed for so long. And do you know what? I am so passionate about that not being the case. I could do a whole new session about that, and I will do at some point, because there's so much conditioning out there that women are told, you know, we can't speak out, we can't look like this, we must look like that, we can't wear that, we can't have that job, we must do this, you know. And I just think, actually, no, we are allowed a voice. We're all absolutely beautiful in our own right, inside and out, and we all deserve to live the life that we want, not what someone else has told us to live, the life that we want. Yeah, I've got that book, Brian. It's brilliant, isn't it? And I love Dr. Jessica Taylor. She's absolutely amazing, and she's just an absolute powerhouse, isn't she? She's, yeah, absolutely, really, really admire her and her work that she's doing. Right, so that is sort of some of my tips for when you're going through proceedings. And don't get me wrong, a lot of them still apply, you know, afterwards as well. And I still use that gratitude practice, you know, looking at the small wins, like what I've achieved each day. And also music is a big part of my life still, and breath work, nature. So it all kind of applies afterwards as well. But that is the things that really helped me whilst I was going through family court proceedings. But this is some of the things I wanted to share about how I've taken back control and how I've built my life afterwards. So, as all of us will know, you know, healing doesn't happen overnight. It'd be wrong of me to say so. You know, sometimes you feel better, another day you don't, and it's a roller coaster ride. But please just know that is completely normal. And there is no time scale with healing as well. It's not a case of, right, a year has passed, why am I still feeling like this? Or 3 years have passed, why am I still feeling like this? It's what is right for you. And that healing can happen by slowly taking really small pieces of your power back. And it starts by just recognizing, or it has done for me, that those small pieces of myself and the power can be reclaimed, are often much smaller and much closer than we realise, and are available to you all by taking those small daily steps to restore them. And every small step you take is an act of courage. Every day you show up for yourself is a victory, and it's worth acknowledging and celebrating, and no matter what form that looks like. So I'm going to share with you now some things that, again, have really helped me just to reclaim my life, but most importantly, me as well. So these are anchors, practices, and choices that help me to return to myself, even, as I said, sadly, there's still post-separation abuse ongoing. And again, this is an important one for me, but I have written down nature again here now, and just the importance of grounding. Now, at the start, I couldn't leave my house, and I'm not quite sure why. I think it was possibly the shame around having my child removed from my care. So I used to just step outside into my back garden, and just feel the ground, feel the earth, feel the grass. And for me, just that practice just released something within me that I couldn't explain. And I breathed in the fresh air, as deep as I could, and it just helped recalibrate my energy, regulate my nervous system, and just help me return to myself. And as I said before, rest was also important for me. Now, when my child was first removed, I felt guilty for resting. I felt awful and like I couldn't have any moments of happiness. I couldn't rest. I couldn't be. I was of the mentality of how dare I enjoy any second of my life while she's going through this hell. Yeah, Bryony, I did lovely. So we now 3 years down the line nearly, and I do have 50-50 care of her. So there is, I say, a silver lining. It shouldn't even be this, to be honest. But yeah, I did get her back, so to speak, 50% of the time. But no, some of you may resonate with the fact that you don't want to rest, you don't feel you can without feeling guilty, you don't think you deserve to rest. But for me, it has become such an important part of my journey and healing. So for anyone listening that perhaps feel the same, please just know you deserve that level of self-care, and please prioritize your rest without feeling guilty, because everything you've been through, your body will be mentally and physically drained. And without that rest and recuperation, it's really hard to start rebuilding again. So please, as much as you can, prioritize that. It's really, really essential. And as touched on before, connection and community are so important. So like I think Louise said, it's about connecting with people who understand, because as much as our family and friends may sort of try and understand and love them for trying to understand, I think when you connect with women who really get it, it becomes, or brings, should I say, a whole new level of healing. And you soon start to realize that the problem was never you, but all along the system, the organizations, the individuals, your ex-partner had led you to believe that you were the problem. But as soon as you start connecting with other women, you start to realize actually the patterns and behaviors of how family courts operate are pretty much textbook. It's very much a tick box exercise in essence. No, Louise, lovely. They didn't take her wishes into account at all, so she didn't want to see her father at all. She is now 8 years old, and it was very much about me keep pushing and pushing and pushing for more contact with her, if I'm honest, and me highlighting that there's no safeguarding concerns, that she was thriving in my care. There was no concerns from any professionals, so why wasn't she allowed to see me? So, and again, I can do another session on that, because I've learned a lot through my own healing, through training in different healing modalities, through obviously personal experience of the family court, speaking to other women, etc., how to kind of that's the way of putting it, how to ensure that her voice is heard as much as it can be at this stage, put it that way, and how much I can do to push the boundaries, for want of a better way of putting it, without pushing them too far within the system where it backfires on me. So I will do another session on that, because I think it's really, really important that, I share as much knowledge as I can with you ladies. And again, not saying I know everything about everything, I certainly don't, but I would be honoured to share what I've learned kind of along my journey. And on that note, basically knowledge for me, it was power. So knowledge became a way that I released the shame and guilt from myself that I'd held on to for so long, that everything that happened was my fault. I should have done something different. I could have said something different. Why didn't I do that? Why didn't I just adhere to that? But actually understanding, firstly, the dynamics of the relationship, as in how my ex-husband treated me, and how actually, again, it's a tick box exercise, the love bombing, that initial stages of kind of, everything's perfect and we're soulmates, etc., through to the end of that discard stage. Everything I'd learned about that was my marriage in essence. And I didn't realize it at the time until, again, in hindsight afterwards, I started to build on actually, what is this? Wanting to understand what had happened. And I came across terms, like post-separation abuse, coercive control, narcissist, which, to be honest, I'd never even heard of before. I literally had no idea what these terms were. But the more I learned, the more I regained my power, I regained my strength, because I realized it wasn't a me problem anymore. And that knowledge replaced any confusion about that. And it just allowed me to sort of let go of any guilt, blame, or shame that, sadly, I know as survivors, we all can carry. And another thing that has been so, so simple, is so, so simple, is I wrote an appreciation list. And that is very much, again, I guess, an extension of the gratitude practice and also those small wins. But I literally had a scrap piece of A4 paper, and I wrote down, probably about a month after my daughter was taken, I wrote down everything on that list, and as much as I could possibly think of that I appreciated at that time. So it was simple things. It was literally, I think it was during the winter, so I had, like a hot water bottle, I had a hot shower, I had, I can make a drink if I want to, I can go for a walk, I can breathe, I can read a book, I've got friends. It was just things that I literally drew upon pretty much on a daily basis once I'd actually written it. And every day I would add to it with something else I appreciated. It would be, like I've got a nice pair of shoes, or, I've got 2 cats that are wonderful. It was some things that before this had happened, I would never have even recognized as something that I should have appreciated, not because I was ungrateful and anything else, but it wasn't things that I actually stopped to go, yeah, that's great, I've actually got that. And at that time, it just helped build positive momentum in my life to know, actually, I've got more than I think I have here. I didn't have the person I wanted, don't get me wrong, and I get how heartbreaking that is. But I was building, and I was building every day with something else to appreciate and something else to move forward with. So that's something, if you ladies don't already, I would definitely recommend that you have that list. And as I said, it's been a really useful tool to draw on, whenever you're having, perhaps a bit of a difficult day, or even just to keep it next to the kettle and keep writing down something else each day that you're appreciative of. Yeah, Bryony, 100% right. And I think, from my personal experience, the more challenges I faced in life and obviously come out the other side, the more I start to recognize the beauty in the world itself, like have a different perspective on life as a whole, but things that are around me, and just really not taking anything for granted anymore. Yeah, absolutely, that lovely, absolutely. And another thing was actually accepting, which brought about inner peace for me. So no matter what your family court journey kind of looks like now, or perhaps has looked like kind of looking back on it, I personally can say, and I know all you lovely ladies watching will be able to say, that you did your best, and that is good enough. And at the time, I didn't really acknowledge that, to be honest, because initially I used to beat myself up that this was my fault, I must have done something wrong, everything else. But as I said, the more I built the community around me of other women, the more I understood about, post-separation abuse, the more I was like, actually, this isn't me. So I will say to all you lovely ladies, if you've acted with integrity, if you've tried to protect your child and uphold their wishes and feelings to the best of your ability, then know you're an amazing mother, and you should be so, so, so proud of that. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Because the system will have us believe that we did wrong. The system will have us believe that we shouldn't have done something, because we never let anyone down. It was literally the system that did. Yeah, I get that, Laurie. I've been there myself, lovely, where you literally go over everything, don't you? And one thing I will say is, if you can put your head on the pillow at night and know you have done as much as you feel you could do in that moment, then that is more than good enough, Laurie. It genuinely is, my lovely. And you should be at peace with yourself for that, because we shouldn't hold on to that guilt. It's the system, those individuals that operate within it, that should hold on to the guilt. And yes, as their mum, we feel, we should be able to protect them, we should be able to do this, we should be able to stop that. And yes, we should do in a world that is just, in a world that is fair, in a system that actually operates with the best interest of children at heart. But sadly, we all know that's not the case. So if you do have any feelings of shame or guilt, please release them as much as you can, because it's not a problem with you, it's a problem with the system, and they're the ones that've let them down. And then just to reiterate again, I guess, in terms of rebuilding, please put yourself first. Now, I used to look at looking after myself as selfish, because as I said, when my child was going through hell, I was like, well, how dare I look after myself? How dare I enjoy anything? But when I began to truly look after myself, so, to rest, to heal, to reconnect with myself, to build my confidence, to build my power, when I finally saw my child again, she saw a stronger version of me. And genuinely, I saw her transition in line with how I rebuilt. So when I was stronger, she followed suit. When I cried, she would cry with me. She would feel that, which is fine. I don't ever pretend that, our emotions can't be released. We're very kind of intent on kind of actually, it's important, as I said before, to release those emotions. But when you look after yourself, when you love yourself, when you start to respect yourself and build that inner strength, everything else begins to fall in place. And you become the role model that firstly you need, because you deserve that level of self-care and self-love and self-respect. But also, if your child is in your life, that your child needs as well, to see mummy strong, to see mummy able to face challenges with strength. And again, I don't want to pretend that that is always the case. It's not, and that's completely normal. Don't pressurize yourself for that always to be the case. But the more you can role model to yourself, but also to your children, that actually we've got this, I've got this, mummy's strong, the more they will follow suit and the more they will be empowered by you. So the best gift genuinely you can give yourself is to look after yourself, to take care of yourself, give yourself the level of love that you would give your child. And on that note, one thing I guess has helped me rebuild my life in general. I mean, just kind of initially, those small steps in terms of actually literally going outside, but also in terms of my work, my business, is actually just saying yes to the things that I actually didn't really want to do at that time. So again, one thing I've learned in hindsight is that when I stopped waiting for the confidence and just took the action, things started to proceed positively. Because I think if I'd waited to feel confident, I'd have been waiting forever, quite literally. So now I know, though, that confidence doesn't arrive before the action, it arrives because of the action. So when we do something that may feel a little bit difficult, may perhaps give a little bit of anxiety or an underlying feeling of I can't, I don't really want to, the more we do those types of things and start saying yes to the small things, the more we start to build momentum, the more we start to reconnect with ourselves, the more that small thing becomes a little bigger thing the following month. So as much as you can, as much as it's safe to do so, start by saying yes to those small things. And for those of you ladies here tonight, that is something that you've done for yourselves. So that is saying yes. And I appreciate, as I said at the beginning, it's not always easy to attend these sessions and have conversations about this topic, but I'm proud of you for attending, and the fact that you've taken that time for you is so, so important. So if there's anything you can say yes to in the next week, like a friend asking you out for a walk or a coffee, starting maybe a free course, attending more sessions like this, or just, getting out of bed, as I said, at the same time every day, start by doing those small things, because it will build momentum, okay? And it will support your healing journey. And touching on what I said earlier about that inner peace and acceptance, one thing for me I've learned, and don't get me wrong, this has taken a long time for me to learn, but I want to share with you ladies now, you know, what I've learned in hindsight is choose peace now, choose yourself now, choose to live now. Because I waited, I stopped, and I was like, I can't do this until things get better. I can't do this until my daughter's home. I can't do this until she's back with me full time. And there's lots of kind of I can'ts until. And obviously that keeps us stuck. It keeps us kind of feeling like life is just a doom cloud, which, don't get me wrong, is valid given the circumstances some of us are in. That's, you know, and not don't want to take away from that. But I will say life is short. Life keeps moving, whether we go with it or not. And waiting for that kind of right moment, that perfect moment, that right situation, that right environment may mean waiting forever. And one thing I have rebuilt from is my, what's the word, my passion, I suppose, for not letting them, as in the family court system, the family court professionals, control and affect my enjoyment of life. And yes, that is easier said than done, but I am at the point now where I'm so peed off with what they have done to my life that I will not let them destroy another moment of it, obviously within the realms of what I can control at the moment. And as much as you ladies can, I would urge you all to try and have that same attitude. Do not let them control your life. Do not let them control your enjoyment of life. Do not let them control your ability just to choose you and just to grasp those really small moments of kind of happiness and joy that you can do now. And please don't wait, because as I said, life is really, really short. And, you know, we can't control what's going on around us. We can't control other people, sadly. You know, we can't change the way people are, their behavior, their words, but we can choose how we want to live alongside that and how we respond to that. And the greatest lesson for me was in choosing myself rather than letting them define me. So it's not about kind of forgetting what's been and forgetting those really, really heart-wrenching moments, or forgetting that someone's wronged you, or, you know, just moving on as if it's not valid. It's not about that, but it's refusing to let what's happened to you become you and how you engage in the world. So, you know, life may not be perfect, but it's about really choosing inner peace and almost getting to the point where you've got, you know, what I call an impenetrable barrier around you, whereby people throw stuff at you, but it just bounces off because you're so confident in yourself and who you are, your morals, your integrity, accepting that you did your best, that actually they can say what they want, but that doesn't define me. That's not who I am. And I will not let that define how I engage in the world. And for me, I used a healing modality called the Tesla Code to do that, which I will be doing a free session on coming up. I think it's towards the end of this month, if not next month. So I will reach out to all you lovely ladies regarding that, and I will teach you part of the Tesla Code, which is how I reconnected with my inner peace, my confidence, and just started to move forward and to feel like I was good enough to receive the good things in life as well. And just very briefly to touch on, like I touched on earlier, just have hope, faith, and certainty that things will get better. And, you know, as I said, I know that looks different for everyone, but hope gives you something that abuse tried to steal, which is your future. And that sense that something good is always possible. And I genuinely believe that, you know, what happens in darkness always comes to light. And I know some of you may not resonate with this, and I hope this comes across in the most respectful way, but I believe that the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, has placed me on this path for a reason. I believe my path that I'm on now is the path I need to be on to evolve for my highest good. And don't get me wrong, at the start, if you'd said that to me, I would be like, what the hell? So please understand, you know, I mean this in the most respectful way. But sometimes as women, I feel like we're placed on a path to challenge us, but also so we have the opportunity to find ourselves again. Because for me, when I was literally broken, at that rock bottom when my child was taken, something in me genuinely ignited, and it broke me open. But when I broke open, the light came in again, and I was like, oh yeah, I do remember I can do that. Oh, I do deserve a voice. Oh, I do deserve to speak out. Oh, I am a kind, caring person. I am a loving person. Oh, I never lied about that, and I sweared on oath that that was the truth, because it was the truth. And you know yes, it's bloody hard. And this session, I do not ever want to pretend to you ladies that it's easy. Please don't ever think that, because I've been there. I do understand, but it is possible to rebuild. And I am living proof of that, literally, from going from, rock bottom in 2023 to life I have now. It would have been unthinkable for me back then. So please just know, if I can do it, anyone else can as well. And as always in life, I'm a firm believer, we learn, don't we? We live and learn, quite literally. And these are just lessons. This is, we're nearly coming to an end, lovely ladies. So I appreciate your time before I proceed, but probably about 5 minutes left. These are the lessons I learned after family court proceedings, which I think it's worth sort of holding on to and sharing with you, lovely ladies. So one thing was that we are all stronger than we realise. And as we spoke about earlier, I think one of you ladies mentioned, women are kind of conditioned, aren't they, to sort of be quiet and, just dull yourself down, sort of thing. But actually, when you start to realise who the hell you are, you realise that the power has always been within you, but perhaps it's just been buried beneath, like, the abuse, sadly, or buried by literally the family court proceedings. But please just know that power, that strength that was within you hasn't gone anywhere. It's just been conditioned over years and years and years. And sadly, for many of us, that can go into childhood, but it's always there. So if you take anything away from this tonight, just remember who the hell you are, because you're not what's happened to you. You're not how they've treated you. You are you, and you are bloody powerful. And pardon my language, but I want everyone watching this to really genuinely believe that. And also, one thing I learned is that boundaries and doing what's right for me isn't selfish, they're actually essential. And again, I will go into a bit more detail about that in another session, perhaps, but just to know that if you choose to do something for you, for your greater good, for the greater good of your child, then that is okay. That is what any normal, loving person, loving mother, loving woman would do. And it's not selfish in any way whatsoever. So always choose you. And also, asking for help is strength. I grew up very, very independent, because I believe that asking for help showed that there was something wrong with me. I couldn't do it on my own. I wasn't good enough. I'd failed. But asking for help is normal. As human beings, we need that community. It's how we thrive. And that is how we will get through this shit together. And again, apologies for my language, but I'm so passionate about this. If anyone wants to reach out to myself, to obviously Sarah, bless her, who is meant to be here tonight, to each other, please do so, because asking for help is strength, literally. And none of us are alone in this at all. And I don't want anyone to feel ever alone. Thank you, Laurie. Bless you. I'm glad you understand. And just so you know, the future can be brighter than where you are now or by your past. Things can change in an instant, and I'm living proof of that. So in October 23, my child was taken. I was told I'd never see her again. And I was told if it didn't work out with her father, i.e. her being in his care, sorry, then she would be placed into care and I would never see her. Well, basically 8 months roughly later, we had 50-50 care of our child, and that has evolved to be that ever since. Now, I never ever thought in a million years at that October 23 hearing that was even possible. I genuinely didn't. I didn't think it was possible to have the life that we've got now, not in a million years. So please just know that there can be small blessings, there can be small miracles, and just hold on to that, because things can change tomorrow. We just never ever know. As I said before, love, connection is all you need. It may not be at this time with who you genuinely want it to be, but love, connection is all around us. And please just know, within the community we've got currently of women that have gone through or been through family court proceedings, it's growing every single day. Yeah, 100%, Louise. Tables are turning, and I genuinely believe that. I've been on social media a lot over the weekend, just for work purposes, but I've seen so many people speaking out, so many people coming together and uniting for the truth and demanding better. And I know things will change. And Sarah Blesser was due to come on and do a bit at the start of this session today to talk about the campaign she's doing, and that she's doing together with lots of other organisations. And I know she will do that as well at some point. But please just know there is lots going on in the background to bring about change. So maintain that hope, okay? And as I said before, peace is priceless. We all deserve peace. So just know that, just hold on to that. And if you don't feel that at the moment, work towards it by putting boundaries in place, by respecting yourself, by resting, recuperating, so you start to come back to yourself and bring yourself back towards inner peace. And as I said before, healing isn't linear. It's okay if some days we feel we can get out of bed. It's okay if the next day we don't. It's okay some days we cry a river and the next day we go for a 5-mile walk, because we can do that. Accept it as it is. Give yourself grace, give yourself kindness as you would give someone else in the situation, because it's what you deserve, okay? And you matter, your voice matters. And as I've touched on, people don't always act in the way we want them to. But as I said, please always remember that's not a reflection of you. And I do respectfully that this may have broken you open. It may have affected every area of your life like it did mine. But please just know your healing will put you back together in a way that you never ever thought possible. And you will return to the powerful, strong, confident women that you've always meant to be. And I am here for that journey for all of you. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And I want to bring as many of you on that journey with me to get you to where I am now as I possibly can. So please just know that it is possible to start thriving again rather than just surviving. And a couple more points I just want to reiterate. Just please remember that you were never the problem. There are literally thousands of mothers out there, if not hundreds of thousands of mothers, of mothers even across the globe that have been affected by the family courts in literally exactly the same textbook tick box exercise way. So just know it's not a reflection of you or anything you've done. It's a reflection of the system. And one final lesson for me, which has actually been really significant, is to reflect on me, to reflect on my experience, not just throughout family courts, but almost to look at what family courts taught me about me. And I didn't do that for myself to place blame or to place any shame or any guilt, but for me, I wanted to move forward to understand how I got to the point that I'm at now. Yeah, 100%, Liz. Children deserve a million times better, absolutely. And for me, I'm a firm believer that we're all always evolving. We're all kind of learning. Every day's a school day, shall we say. And for me, I learned through my own healing that my old patterns, my old beliefs, my limiting beliefs, the lack of boundaries I had, the lack of self-respect I had, lack of confidence I had, transcended into my journey through different relationships. And I'm not saying to any of you lovely ladies watching here that you deserve or deserved anything that you've experienced in your life or throughout family court proceedings. I don't say that at all. But from my personal perspective, I needed to reflect on how I'd led my life, how I felt about myself, and how that impacted on the type of behaviours I allowed to be directed towards me. And don't get me wrong, that all came with healing again. That all came with self-reflection of, literally doing healing sessions with other people, but also on myself to actually look at what I could learn from this, to look at gaining increased wisdom. And for anyone that wants to look at that piece of kind of self-reflection, I would urge you to do so, but obviously it's got to be at a time that's right for you. Because as I said, it's not about placing blame, it's just reflecting and looking at anything in your life, perhaps now that, no longer serves you. But before we go, I just want to remind you all that what anyone says or does doesn't define you. So please don't let it become your identity. The truth doesn't suddenly become the truth just because someone's written it down or said something about you. And you may feel that the court process has taken, years of your life, maybe your confidence, your peace, your health, or even, some of the most important relationships to you. And, I get that loss is real and I acknowledge it and my heart goes out to you. But please just know it cannot take your future unless you allow it to. Because you've all showed up tonight. And for me, as I said, that is an act of courage because I don't think I could have done it. I genuinely don't. And please just know healing is possible, happiness, peace, wholeness are not behind you. They're ahead of you in what is to come. And everyone watching this now, but also on record, you are not alone. This community, literally this session now, and many, many other women are all behind you, and we all stand strong, united, and we're all there for each other. And please just know that life can transform, it can get better, and both Sarah and I are living proof of that. And I just want to say to those of you watching, just thank you from the bottom of my heart for just trusting me with your time today. I appreciate it's not easy to attend sessions like this, but I'm really honoured that you've taken the time out today for yourself as well. And please just know your story doesn't end with family courts. It can begin again, and it begins with you choosing you and knowing that you deserve a life full of joy, happiness, and peace, because every single woman watching this today does. And please, please always remember that, okay? And that brings us to the end of our session, lovely lady. So as I said, thank you so much. You're very welcome, everyone. And thank you, everyone, for showing up for you. It means a lot, and it shows a lot of strength and courage to do that. So genuinely, thank you, thank you. And I'm sorry the session has gone on a little bit longer than intended, but as I said, really, really appreciate your time. Thank you, Laurie. I will look up my session on that free session regarding regaining inner peace. So basically, I'm running a session which is around recalibrating your nervous system, which for me helped me regain my inner peace because I was no longer stuck in what I call the fight or flight, kind of feeling anxious on edge mode. I will pop in my new you group for those of you that are in that, and I will type in the comments actually for those of you that perhaps aren't in there already, how to access that group, because in that group I do a lot of sessions just around empowering ladies. So Sarah in Peepsa is very much focused on, post-separation abuse, because that's where Peepsa's focus is, and she's very, very knowledgeable in terms of like the law, the legal side, the case work side, how the organizations operate, that kind of thing. My work, more so just because I've trained in sort of 3 different healing modalities now, is around that healing, that empowerment, that regaining confidence, sense of self, identity, regaining your inner peace, that kind of work during, which is important, family courts, but more so for me, the work after, and obviously utilizing my own lived experience to kind of really gain an understanding of what women need as well. So the New You group is very much focused on that for anyone that would like to join, okay? And then within that, I will post the free events that are coming up, okay? So for anyone that wants to participate in those, you are very, very welcome. And they'll be at different points throughout the week, but also they will be available on record as well. So if you can't make the live sessions, they will be posted in the group as a replay, so you can access them whenever you want, okay? But thank you, wonderful ladies, again. It's soon getting dark here. I should have turned my light on. I didn't realise actually, but thank you so much. And I will pop in. Pizza is the name of Sarah's Facebook group. And I know she's, sorry, I can't get my typing right. I know she's also on LinkedIn and also Instagram as well, Philippa. So you will find, if you type in Peepsa, possibly on Google, it will no doubt come up with all her different sort of social platforms. But thank you, Louise. Lovely to see you. Lovely. Take care. So if you type in Peepsa in Google, it will bring up everything, you know, that you can access around Peepsa. But I know she does particularly use Facebook and Instagram a lot as well. So no doubt you will find that helpful. And what I'll do when I post the recording of this session in the New You group, I will also pop any relevant like social media platforms that you ladies can access under there as well. So hopefully that will help as well. Okay. But as I said, thank you so much, lovely ladies, for your time. I genuinely really, really appreciate it. And sending you all so much love from the bottom of my heart. And take care. And hopefully I will see you again at another session. Okay. Take care. Lots of love. Bye.